Alright, welcome to my review for Godzilla vs. Kong. Um, Before we start, I want to just mention that I did watch, I did watch the film, obviously, but I watched uh, a review by Doomcock and also the one that just dropped by The Critical Drinker. Um, uh, Doomcock, I believe, was overall positive. There were a few things that he took issue with, I believe, but if I recall correctly, he generally liked it. Um, Especially since it gave him at least some of what he had been requesting all along, which is kaiju in daylight fighting one another. And not with like brief cutaways here and there or whatever, so that he could actually see what the hell was happening. Apparently, that's a really important thing as far as he's concerned. Um, I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just anyway. And the Critical Drinker, his review was almost entirely negative. Um, Basically, the only thing he seemed to say positive about it was that it was perhaps not a mistake that they just went with the have it be a big stupid monster movie, yeah, thing. Um, some of what he had to say, obviously I'm not going to go over either of their videos, but some of what the Critical Drinker had to say was objectively false. Like some of the things that he had to say about the movie were simply not true. I don't think he was lying. I think he probably just like zoned out or something because he wasn't enjoying it. Um, but I would, you know, I don't, I'm not gonna be like, okay, well, his review was fair. It's like, not entirely. So, a lot of it was, but not entirely. It was not entirely fair. So I think he was a little bit biased against the movie because Anyway, all right, let's get started. First up, the Kaiju. The uh, uh, the previous movie had a whole bunch of kaiju in it. This one, not so much. It's pretty much just the two titular characters. However, even though it is Godzilla versus Kong, and you'd expect Godzilla to be a major player, and he is kind of, uh, Kong is most assuredly the star of the film. Um, Now, perhaps this is not to be wondered at because the '60s or whenever Godzilla versus Kong movie was the same way. And Kong being an ape, it's just he's much closer to being human. He's much more easy probably for human audiences to connect with, to empathize with, and whatnot. Um, I guess I don't know. Anyway, so there you have it. Kong is definitely the protagonist of the film as far as the kaiju are concerned. Now, the thing about Godzilla is that Godzilla's really he does appear like he's there for what is it, three? There's three fight scenes, and they go on for a bit, so it's not like he doesn't get any screen time. He gets quite a bit, but at the same time, he's sort of reduced to this background character. A sort of a ever-present lurking threat out there someplace. It's just I don't know. I mean, it's not dissimilar to uh, the '60s. Uh, Damn it! It's not dissimilar to the '60s movie. Uh, anyway, but that's about all there is to say about the kaiju, at least without any spoilers. Although essentially it is just the two of them. Um, so let's move on. Oh well, yeah. Let's mention that. CNN is uh I know that there's this thing where it's like we're trying to make the movie more realistic by dropping in real world things, but honestly, it's not doing anything positive for their fake news image to lend their name out to movies to literally be fake news. Anyway, next, the humans. let's talk about, there's not a whole lot I can say without spoiling things. So I'm just going to go over, in the spoil free section here, I'm just going to go over the the cast of characters basically. So first up we have the little girl. I believe the little girl's name is Gia, played by Kaylee Hoddle, I think. Anyway, it's not really a spoiler since it'll come up almost immediately. She is the lone survivor of Skull Island. The people that were living there. Apparently, they all died except for her, and she's deaf. But nevertheless, she develops a relationship with Kong. You can see she's got a little toy of him or something. Now, the actress does a pretty good job. Uh, Admittedly, I don't know. I mean, you're expressing quite a bit, especially if you're not saying anything. It's like a lot of the performance is carried just by your facial expressions, and of course, children seem to do pretty good with that anyway. I'll go ahead and make a note here that it is always possible that if she had a speaking role, it might be worse. It might be a worse performance for it. You never know. We know that certain other people seem to do better when they're not expected to say anything. Anyway, so here we have what is her name? I the character Eileen Andrews, I think, played by Rebecca Hall, and she's labeled the Kong Whisperer. She's taking, well, I don't want to say taking care of, observing, let's put it that way, observing Kong on Skull Island. And also, she apparently has adopted the little girl. Um, there's nothing outstanding about this performance, and there's nothing bad about it either. I mean, it's just it's decent. There's nothing really to complain about in my opinion, at least based on how well I recall the movie, which I've only seen once. But anyway, next up, Bernie. No, not that Bernie. No, thank God. That would have been a terrible movie. Uh, no, this Bernie. Um, Bernie. What is this? Bernie Hayes, played by Brian Tyree Henry. Um, he's doing that thing for a lot of the movie where he's kind of talking fast. I guess it's supposed to be a comedic thing. Uh, eh, it works if you let it. It's like it can really get on your nerves when people are doing that kind of. It's supposed to be funny. It kind of isn't, but if you just give up and go with it, it works enough. Anyway, his performance, decent. Again, no real complaints or anything other, apart from the type of comedy not really working. All right, well, let's move on. Next up is Bobby Brown. No, again, wrong, not Bobby. No, there we go. Millie Bobby Brown. Millie Bobby Brown, who is reprising her role as Madison Russell. And this may be one of the few places in the movie where she's got her hair let down. So anyway, um, her entire part of the movie, her story or whatever, seems, for a big portion of it, seems kind of divorced from the main thing that's going on with the other characters in the kaiju. Um, the critical drinkers' criticism of we had to give her something to do. It's like, yeah, I guess. And honestly, I'm happy that she's in it because one of the things that I didn't really like about where things went from the first MonsterVerse movie, the Godzilla movie, to Godzilla King of the Monsters, is that with few exceptions, all the characters that you established in the first one didn't return for the second one, either because they'd been killed off in the first one or because they just, you're just done with them. So they introduced new, different characters. I feel like these movies would definitely be better if there was a stronger human storyline and that they just did a better job, keeping the human characters coming back for each film and giving them like real things to do. As it is, it feels like, her character doesn't have to be here. Like the whole story could happen without it, but you know, it adds something, I suppose. Um, all right, and also her father, Mark Russell, played by Kyle Chandler, is back. Um, but he is really a background character. Like, I mean, he had he was essentially the main human character in Godzilla King of the Monsters, and in this one, he's apparently, I guess, taken over running Monarch, but he's very much a background character, and you don't see much of him except to um, argue a couple of times with his daughter, and then have brief scenes where he's the guy in charge of the people that don't seem to be really participating quite so much in the story. Like, they're there, but they're not there. Anyway, next we have Nathan Lind, played by Alexander Skarsgård. Drinker complained about his character and performance, I guess. I didn't find anything wrong with it specifically. Um, it's like I said, it's another sort of like decent performance. There's nothing really bad about it, but there's nothing particularly outstanding about it either. He his character has it's muted, but it's a sort of an arc. It's like he goes from being this scaredy cat to begin with, basically, to finding his spine. It's not a whole lot of development that you get with him because of the nature of the film, and also the fact that the entire thing, I should mention, is fairly short. Like, minus credits, I think it's only like an hour and 45 minutes long, something like that. So it's actually a pretty short movie for this sort of movie. I would have expected it to be over 2 hours long, but it actually wound up being. Um, and there are a few things which I feel like might have benefited from being longer, but overall, I think the fact that as the drinker criticized, or well, sort of criticized, that it's just a big dumb monster movie or whatever. It's like, well, if you're going to go ahead and go with that, it's best not to drag it out. It's best to just go ahead and just do it and get it over with. Most of your classic Godzilla films were really not super long. Some of them were pretty fucking short, actually. But anyway, um, overall, I approved of his performance in this. Now we have. I don't, I mean, it's not a token character, is it? I don't guess so. Josh Valentine, played by Julian Dennison. This is Millie Bobby Brown's overweight comic relief friend, who naturally is not treated with enormous respect in the film. He's there to be made fun of and whatnot. He's, I don't know, Australian, New Zealander, something. He's, anyway. Yeah, not much to say. I mean, like I said, he's the plump comic relief. What else can you say? It, I mean, it wouldn't be all that difficult to make a real character, that actually does something worthwhile. But yeah, no, nah, fuck it. let's just, let's just, let's just stick a template in there, basically. All right. Now we have uh, an evil corporation doing evil corporation things. This is what is it? Walter Simmons, played by Demian Bashir. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, the most interesting thing about, this is sort of your, you can tell. How far do we have to go into this movie? A few seconds. You go into him appearing on screen, and you're like, Apex Cybernetics. This is the evil corporation that's going to be doing evil corporation things. He's the CEO. That means he's Mr. Evil. He's the villain. And insofar as he's doing a very tired trope of the evil CEO or whatever, I guess he does a good job. But, there's nothing spectacular there. Although, perhaps the most spectacular thing is that being evil, you would expect him, in this day and age especially, to be white. But, in fact, he's Hispanic, apparently. Based on his accent, at least, it seems to be Hispanic. And then we have, I don't know, what is he? Does he qualify as henchman, or is that too lowly a term? We have, what the hell is the character? Ren Sarazawa, played by Shun Oguri. Now, obviously, based on the name Sarazawa, you would expect that he's some relation to Dr. Sarazawa, played by, what is the guy's name? Was it Ken Watanabe or whatever? Is that the actor that played him in the previous two films? But that's never touched on. Not once that I recall did they. It's like they mention his name, and but beyond that, it's like, nah, he's just there. That's his name, but no mention whatsoever. The actor, he does a good enough job for the role that he's given. So no real complaints, but again, nothing particularly outstanding. Then we have the daughter of the evil CEO. What is the character's name? Maya Simmons, played by Isa Gonzalez. She's outstanding in that she's really, really beautiful. She's quite attractive there. She manages to be, I don't know, obviously being the daughter of the evil CEO, you know certain things going into it. It's like, yeah, she's going to wind up being a bad guy, isn't she? Unless there's that unexpected, well, actually, she's not that bad, thing. And, but she manages to, I thought that she managed to be abrasive without coming off as overtly evil, which was kind of pleasant, I feel like there was a lot of potential in this character that was unfortunately not realized, and that's down to the writing. That's not down to the actress's performance. I think she did quite a good job. All right, that essentially brings us to the end of what I can say without spoiling anything, really. So it's time for the spoiler warning. All right, we're now entering spoiler territory. First up, the little girl and Kong. Some things were said about the movie going into it about, it's not obviously, if you've seen the trailers, it was not any kind of surprise to know that there was a relationship between the little girl and Kong. But many people criticized it right out the gate, saying, "Oh boy, it's like it's a young female and she's the most important thing in the universe or whatever." Pardon me, and just kind of saying that, it just felt tired. It felt like a tired trope. They're tired of seeing it. I understand that. However, um, some of the things that people had either suggested or said they heard other people suggest or whatever, that there was going to be some kind of like psychic connection and maybe she was going to have psychic powers or whatever. That does not appear to be the case. She and Kong have a relationship. They're friends, I guess, or whatever. Um, but there's no psychic powers or any weird stuff like that. No, as a matter of fact, what turns out to be true is that Kong is perhaps even more intelligent than you might have given him credit for. I mean, it's clear that he's intelligent. Most of the kaiju appear to be sort of intelligent, but at the same time still very much just animals. And Kong is more of a thinking creature, which is not to be wondered at. But it turns out that as she's deaf, she uses sign language. But it turns out that as she learned it, I guess, from which, I mean, it's as far as I know, it's American Sign Language, so she learned it from the scientist who adopted her. One would assume. Anyway, apparently, as she was learning it, Kong was learning it as well, and he did not let on to anybody except the little girl. So, some people, I guess, think that's stupid. I thought it was, kind of interesting in a way, and it has a bearing on some other things that happen. Let's go now to the Hollow Earth. Um, Here is a hologram. Yeah, the hollow of the Hollow Earth. Um, Now, classically, I believe the Hollow Earth, and they're blending, you know, their take on it with the classic take, I think, which we'll see later, or see here in a second. But anyway, but you see what that looks like. It looks like are these huge tunnels running from the surface down to the very center of the planet. What in reality would be the probably solid metallic core of the Earth, and that instead it looks from this to be just an empty space, which is really weird. A really weird idea. Of course, the classic idea of the hollow Earth was basically, as I understood it, that the outside, surface of the Earth that we live on is really not very thick, and that very, just a short ways under the surface, it was, hollow. There's like a hollow shell. Like what we live on, the crust is a hollow shell surrounding an inner sphere that that's like another planet. And I think some versions of this concept, kind of have it like a Matryoshka doll or whatever, where it just keeps going in on itself, which is kind of weird. Um, and also, everybody should have known that that couldn't possibly be the case because the physics of it don't work. It's just it's crazy to have like to have a planet with it's hollow. It's like there's actually like essentially no connection with the inner sphere to the outer. It's like that doesn't that's insane. Um, Now, certain other fictional universes that I've watched or read or whatever have treated the concept of the Hollow Earth, which honestly I thought that's what they were going to go for here, as it's not like the center of the fucking planet. It's just like there are vast cavernous areas under the surface. That wouldn't be like far under the surface, maybe 10 miles down or something. I don't know, but it's like that would not be impossible, not at all. It's like that would potentially be, fairly realistic, all things considered. But no, they go in a much more fantastic direction, which is, on the one hand, it strains credulity. It's more difficult to suspend your disbelief of something like that. But at the same time, it's also inarguably kind of cool. Um, so here is a picture of the hollow Earth. It's a couple of things dropping out there at the top. That's rocks or craft or something falling out of one of the tunnels from the surface. So this is apparently that space in the center of the planet, and as you can see, it's like from the hologram, it looked like it was just a completely hollow thing. Well, no. Here, apparently, there is an inner sphere. There's like another miniature Earth in the core. And it's almost, but not quite, touching the landscape of the inside of it's crazy. I mean, it's cool. It's like, it's like some, weird artwork or whatever that paints a fantastic landscape that can't possibly exist in reality. And those things are often very cool, but again, totally unrealistic. And this is definitely one of those things where it's like, I don't know, you either embrace it and it's like, oh wow, that's so fucking cool, or you maintain, reason and think to yourself, that's fucking impossible. Why did they go in such an unrealistic direction? But to be honest, it's like giant monsters. People have pointed out for a long time that Godzilla, I mean, it's sort of true and sort of not true. They pointed out that Godzilla's bones would shatter because, he's just too heavy for them. Of course, that depends on what they're made of, doesn't it? It's like if they're made of some sort of hyper strong material, then that doesn't really apply. But if it was, bone as we understand it, obviously, yes, that would be true. Anyway, so Hollow Earth, it's beautiful, it's cool, it's totally unreal. Um, eh. I mean, on the one hand, it is really fucking cool, and on the other hand, it feels like this is one of the mistakes that movies make these days, and have done for a long time now, which is we have the technology to make these really impossible fucking things come to life because of CGI and whatnot. So why the fuck don't we do it? And it's like, if they had to stick to, more practical things or whatever, it feels like, they wouldn't go so outlandish in a direction with things, which would have, certain benefits. It might have drawbacks too, but it'd have benefits. All right. And then they go cruising around following Kong in the Hollow Earth. This part, there's two things that I want to say about this part right here. This feels like they're setting up a scenario for a theme park ride based on this part of the movie. And that's another unfortunate thing that seems to happen in movies now, is that they think about marketing, beyond the movie itself, and it's like, don't let that affect your decisions about how you make the movie too much. That's a bad idea. So this feels like you're headed for theme park ride territory here. I also feel like this, if the movie had been longer and more human centric, probably the human characters would have had a much longer exploration journey on foot, probably, or maybe land vehicle or something, in the Hollow Earth, and it would have, like maybe Kong would have come, in and out of the picture, as it were, and they would have been attacked by various smaller creatures, and some of them they managed to fend off on their own, and some of them they had to count on him to save them from, or whatever. I don't know. It just feels like there were potential benefits to making it a longer film that had more time with the humans, and you could have explored the Hollow Earth on foot, and that would have been really cool. and would have given you a chance for more character development. Um, but at the same time, like I said, there is something to be said for the fact that they just kind of just they just did it. They just went ahead and had the movie keep up the pace and ever didn't ever really feel like they're wasting your time. Some movies do that. Um, and of course, they are attacked by, I think these things are supposed to be, they're not named in the film, but I think they're supposed to be called war bats or something, which they don't really appear to be bats. They're, or no, maybe they're not war bats. Maybe those things later are war bats, and these, yeah, this thing, I think, was this thing called chemazotes? I'm not sure. If I mean, it seems like there was something that they said that was going to be in the film that was called chemazotes, and it's like I suppose it is a kaiju. They're very briefly. There's a couple of them before Kong kills them, um, but they look more like descriptions of Quetzalcoatl or however you pronounce that. It's like he's this the feathered serpent, and obviously there's no feathers here, but it's more like a winged serpent creature. Whereas Chemazots is a bat god. So I don't know. Anyway, and that also leads you to think that are they setting up a video game portion here? Theme park ride, maybe. Video game, maybe. I feel like that's why they added some of the extra bullshit that in the Harry Potter films that was not in the books. Like they took out a bunch of stuff that was in the books, but then they added some crap that wasn't in the books. And I feel like a lot of that they did so that they could put it in the video game or some shit. And it's like, come on. Anyway, all right. Now here are some issues that I have with the movie. I'm not really being not really bitching like some people might. I'm just bringing these up. These are things that don't make sense. They just kind of struck me as something odd. Um, Now, at one point when Kong is being transported from Skull Island to Antarctica, and apparently they're trying to steer clear of Godzilla's normal routes. He's being taken by an entire there's an entire fleet of Navy ships escorting, and Kong is chained up on the deck of what appears to be a converted oil tanker. Um, that I guess is sort of realistic because an oil tanker is, oil tankers are the largest ships built, and you know, there's the possibility that yes, it actually could carry something as heavy as Kong. Although I really kind of feel like it, wouldn't like it'd be very easy to sink if he moved around very much. So there's a hint of unrealism there. Um, Now it gets much worse when Godzilla, of course, attacks, and Godzilla shows up and destroys virtually the entire fleet or half of it or something, and Kong helps destroy the fleet as well when he's fighting Godzilla, and here you see them duking it out on the deck of an aircraft carrier. Now, I'm sure many people will consider that this is a really cool image. It's really cool that they had this fight scene and whatnot, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, this is the sort of thing that, yeah, you probably would have done with toys as a kid. It's like, yeah, the giant monsters are fighting on the deck of an aircraft carrier. Um, it is, of course, it's like, in order to get from his freighter, oil tanker freighter, Kong jumps on the destroyer or whatever it is that's in the foreground here, and then leaps from it to the deck of the aircraft carrier. And it's like, that much weight would have snapped that destroyer in half. It would have immediately sunk that ship and killed everybody on it. And probably him landing on the deck of the aircraft carrier would have also, uh, you know, broken the back of the ship, essentially cracked it open, and it would have sank immediately. It, it requires a great deal of suspension of disbelief to. Yeah, I mean, you can. I mean, obviously, it is possible. I'm essentially, I did that. I made a conscious choice to just sort of sit back and enjoy the spectacle, even though I knew this is ridiculous because it can't possibly, happen. It's like, never mind that giant monsters can't exist. It's like, hypothetically, some kind of giant life forms could exist. Probably not like, probably not built the way these are built, but nevertheless, something huge could. But, you know, but this the way that things are working in this scene, no, there's no way. Um, so, I don't know. And Drinker briefly mentioned this, I believe, in his review. Yeah, they airlift Kong when the fleet has to stop after the battle with Godzilla. Yeah, they apparently just turning off all their engines and shit makes Godzilla decide, all right, well, I've asserted my dominance, I can now go away. But apparently they decided, well, if we turn the engines back on, he's going to come back. So they had to airlift Kong to Antarctica, and I'm pretty sure that there's kind of a maximum lift capacity of all these helicopters that would be well under the enormous fucking weight of King Kong. So I don't know. It just doesn't it doesn't seem very realistic either. Again, it's one of those things. It's not a problem as long as you don't really think about it. And audiences have gotten good at that, I think. So probably fine with most people. Um, Now we come to the subject of the massive infrastructure that exists in this world. It turns out that Apex, Bernie and what is the character's name? Millie Bobby Brown's character, Madison, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Um, anyway, and Josh, of course. I mustn't forget Josh, even though it's super easy to do. Anyway, the three of them are investigating Apex, so the ruins of their Pensacola, Florida facility, I believe, is where Godzilla attacks in the beginning of the film. And they discover that, or at some point they've learned that things are being shipped to Hong Kong, to the Apex facility there. And it's like, okay, uh, there's nothing mysterious about that. At least not to me. It's like, okay, the shipping shit to Hong Kong. Anyway, they go back to the Pensacola facility and apparently discover that stuff is being loaded up into something, kind of, some sort of thing in like the basement or the sub basement or some shit, apparently for shipping. And it's like, what's it doing down here? And so they wind up on board this thing, and then it takes off, and you see that it's a maglev car. Apex has apparently built an entire maglev system, I guess through the hollow earth, because it's going from Florida to Hong Kong, which it does in a matter of hours at a speed of, several hundred miles, or I think the counter shows it to be over 600 miles an hour that they're traveling. And it's like, that must have been phenomenally expensive. And on top of it being something that couldn't possibly be afforded, it's like, how the hell could you possibly make something that huge with nobody knowing you were doing it? It's like, nah, it's easy. It's totally easy, I guess, to build, an advanced magnetic propulsion or conveyor tube or whatever through the entire planet, thousands of miles long. You just easily do that sort of shit, and nobody knows you did it. Nobody noticed you bringing in enough supplies to build something that enormous. I mean, it's just insane. This is the sort of stuff that you can kind of get away with sometimes in like kids cartoons and shit, where the kids are not going to think about the impracticalities of it, at least not most of them. But this is crazy. This is a crazy amount of infrastructure that's just absolutely impossible to have. It would take too long, it would take too much money, it would take too many resources, and especially to do it in secret, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's no way. There's no fucking way. And now we come to something that, in a way, is perhaps a little bit more believable because, after all, Monarch, I guess, is funded by the government, and the government spends God only knows how many trillions of dollars without anybody really knowing what the fuck they're doing with it. So they built this massive fucking facility in Antarctica. Now, we saw some there in the last movie, but this appears to be a whole nother level of huge. You see there for scale, that's Kong. You know how fucking huge he is. Look at the size of this fucking facility. It's like a fucking city they built down there. What the hell? How long did that take? How much taxpayer money did you have to spend? You know, it's a crazy amount of shit. Again, it's like this is the sort of stuff that you see in cartoons because they only have to draw it. It doesn't matter. There's no costs or anything associated. Nobody cares about that. It's just draw it and make it look cool. Same thing essentially for video games, I suppose, in a way. It's like it does cost a little bit more probably to all those man hours of building the 3D model, and again, same thing for movie as a video game. But still, it's like it's completely impractical. It's like it could never happen. And not in the real world, I mean, in some sci-fi future where where it costs a lot less to build something, or you have more resources or whatever. Sure, sure. And this is what you get when Kong goes inside that tunnel there, and they're flying in after him. There's an enormous cavern under there, and it's not natural. It's something apparently built by Monarch. Look at the artificial structures here. Monarch built all of this shit, and this is a cropped image. It's like it extends like way further to both sides and shit. It's like, what the hell? I mean, like I said, it's like in G.I. Joe when Cobra has these gargantuan structures that they build, and it's like they're not even a government. How did they build that? How did they afford it? How do they put that shit together? And the answer is it's a cartoon. It doesn't matter. But I don't know. When you go live action, it feels like you ought to be a little bit more realistic, or you should set it in the future or a galaxy far, far away or something where it's like you don't have to explain how all this infrastructure got there because, it's an advanced civilization that has the resources to do that and the manpower to do that and the tax revenue to do that. It's like, but this, it's like, how? Fucking how? Holy shit. Anyway. And now we go to apparently the fate of Ghidorah. Now, we saw what happened to him, or to, he was killed, obviously, in the last movie. But we saw, if you watched the after credits scene, you saw that his head that Godzilla tore off in the first battle or whatever that then regrew after Godzilla was hit by the oxygen destroyer. You saw that Charles Dance and his group had agreed to buy from the fisherman or whatever that found the damn thing the head. Now, admittedly, it was presumably dead or whatever, but you got the sense that since Ghidorah regrew that head, that maybe that head could regrow the rest of him given time, and it just felt like, ooh, they're going to bring him back. This is what's going to happen. Or maybe there would be Mecha Ghidorah or something. No, this is what happened. Apparently, they recovered it, and there's some talk of how it's supposed to be a living supercomputer, but it's not living. It's like you took all the flesh off of the skull. It's just a skull. there's nothing left. It's like the brain's gone. What, it's like presumably it was there, but you got rid of it. So this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense just on the face of it. Um, Apparently, it was supposedly part of the plan or whatever to, um, to help them build Mechagodzilla in this film. But I don't know. It seems like a waste. It's like they should have brought back Ghidorah. And the other potential thing, which we'll get to in a moment, that could have been a part of that this played in the story, doesn't happen. It's like if it happened, it's not something that was talked about, and I'm guessing it didn't happen. Maybe it was meant to or something. I don't know, but anyway. Um, and of course, well, brief note. This isn't, and this is, well, I mean, it's something that kind of makes sense but doesn't make sense, and that is, since the daughter of the evil CEO is evil, then at the last moment she has to do stupid shit. She has to betray the protagonists, and turn out to, yes, indeed be a villain, even though she hasn't, you she hasn't really been a villain up to this point. She's been a bitch, perhaps, at times. But even that, I thought, was a little less, she was a little less awful than I figured that she was going to be. I figured she'd be much more abrasive, and it's like, no, the abrasiveness was actually kind of kept to a minimum. I thought she had the potential to develop into a very much likable character, but unfortunately it was not realized. So yes, because she's evil, the hottie must at the last minute be stupid, betray the heroes, order her pilot to open fire on Kong for no reason, and then of course Kong kills her. Kills her and her men. And it's like, what the fuck was the point of that? That's so stupid. Anyway, and then we have this. Obviously, some context is needed. Kong finds that axe. You would have seen it in the trailer. Kong, or the movie if you've seen the movie. Kong finds that axe down there that looks like it's made out of one of Godzilla's spines, his fins or whatever. I don't think that it actually is. Could be, but I don't think so. I don't know. Anyway, but he finds that axe down there, and laying it into the floor, he's apparently charges it up or something, and I guess, I don't know, like somehow Godzilla appears to be connected to whatever is going on down there in the core of the planet, like this, like the center of Hollow Earth or some shit. And apparently Godzilla, is somehow sensitive to what's going on. So when he's attacking Hong Kong, because he's going after, he can apparently sense Mechagodzilla existing there, and so he's going after it. Because for some reason it's apparently making that bioacoustic crap, the alpha signal or something. I mean, if you're going to build a Mechagodzilla, why the hell do you need to build in, some sort of acoustic thing that alerts all of the other Titans to its existence? That doesn't make any sense either, for that matter. That's stupid. But apparently it does that. And so Godzilla's there to attack Apex again, but then something's going on in the core, in the Earth's core, in the Hollow Earth with Kong, and Godzilla senses that and commences to fire his breath weapon at the ground, and he fucking tunnels all the way through to the core of the planet. Maybe actually, at one, it's like at one point Kong, I think, looks down and up, and it looks like Godzilla may have burned a hole straight through the entire planet, like possibly all the way through to the other side, although that's not specifically shown. Just burning his way through to the middle of it, which happened pretty fast, not instantly, but pretty fucking fast. And it's like, what happened to all of the material? It's like you didn't have a shit ton of molten rock spilling out on Kong and everybody. So it's like, what, it just vaporized? Again, not possible. So this is another, and I'm assuming that the whole point of this basically is just like, well, we need to get Kong and our humans out of the hollow earth and back to the surface, and we specifically need them to wind up being in Hong Kong for the big battle royale. And it's like, so they just came up with a very ridiculous way of allowing a shortcut to happen. It's extremely stupid, and this, of course, means that Godzilla, is way the fuck overpowered, and it's like, if he can do that, then, why doesn't he just, like, any enemy that shows up, he should have the power to just blast them out of existence. It was like one shot of his atomic breath or whatever should be able to melt them, vaporize them, whatever. It should, as some people pointed out about, the way that Star Trek phasers work, where like there's no explosion, things just disappear. People have suggested that, oh well, what that apparently is that it is disrupting the matter and turning it into neutrinos, because otherwise there would be an explosion. Like, they call it vaporization or whatever, but it's like vapor means vaporize means it turns into vapor and would explode violently. And since it doesn't do that, apparently it's being disrupted into neutrinos, which are very weakly interactive. So, you turn the matter into neutrinos and nothing really happens. It just appears to vanish. So, if Godzilla can apparently disrupt, countless millions of tons of rock into neutrinos, just make it disappear, he should be able to do that with any adversary in existence. It's like, what the... Anyway, so yeah, Godzilla is way overpowered here. That doesn't make any sense. Another thing, it's like, apparently they're having trouble with Mechagodzilla getting it to work, and they need a power source to power it properly. I guess, what, they're out of plutonium? I don't understand. I don't understand what it is that they need. And what's really bizarre is that they apparently knew that there was something special down there in the hollow earth at the center of it or whatever. Some kind of power source that's apparently similar to Godzilla's. And they knew it was down there, and they built a fucking robot to go and collect a sample. But then, when it does, all it has to do apparently is scan a piece of this rock or whatever, this exotic glowing rock. It extracts a piece of it and then sucks it up inside the robot, and then it just scans it with a little scanner beam thing and transmits the data back to Apex. And just from the information, they somehow can duplicate it. It doesn't make any sense. It makes absolutely zero fucking sense. Anyway, so that's kind of an issue. Mechagodzilla does go rogue at the end of the film, and the real question is why. As it goes rogue. It kills what's his ass, the CEO of Apex. Sarazawa is electrocuted. Don't know if he's killed or not, in his control chair inside Ghidorah's skull. And you get this message flash up that the computer or whatever is disconnected from Mechagodzilla. There's some kind of so it's like they're not in control. So he goes rogue. Now, you know what might have been interesting and might have kind of explained it? Is if somehow, some part of the brain or whatever of Ghidorah was still alive, and like it transferred its consciousness into Mechagodzilla so that it could live again. Like, that would actually explain why the machine suddenly has a mind of its own. It's, it doesn't. It has Ghidorah's mind, and and it's like, okay, yeah, that would have, it's still kind of silly, but it would have made some kind of sense. But they didn't explain it. They didn't bother explaining it at all. It just is a malfunctioning machine. Apparently, it just goes rogue. You know, okay, whatever. Um, Now, in the beginning of the film, we saw that Bernie was able to hack into Apex computers. So why is it that when they're trying to figure out how to turn off Mechagodzilla, pardon me, it's actually Josh, who's the extent of his coding experience is apparently that he knows HTML, and yet he's the one manning the computer console here and trying to do something. Why? Why? It doesn't make any sense. Uh, you know, and nor does the solution, by the way, because the solution is that they, Josh, Bernie's drinking, from his flask, and Josh grabs it and pours it on the computer console to short it out. Despite the fact that I thought that we saw something flash up that said that Mechagodzilla was disconnected, and that's why he was going, like, it's gone rogue. It's not under the control of the central computer. Well, then how does how does it disrupt Mechagodzilla to pour alcohol on the computer and short it out? How would that do it anyway? Even if it wasn't, it's just, I don't know. It's just stupid. Anyway, but those conclude the complaints that I really have with the film. Again, it's possible to still enjoy it. It's just, pretend like it's a cartoon or something. It's just a silly movie. It's meant to be silly. Don't take it seriously. Don't ask don't ask it to do things like make sense. All right. So now let's move on to things left unexplained. There are a few mysteries that it would have been nice, in my opinion, to have answered. I mean, obviously, there's no requirement to, but I think it would have been cool if they had. Although doing so would have required the movie probably be quite a bit longer. Here we have, well, actually, we have a mountain that's shaped sort of like a hand with a finger outstretched. It's obviously meant to be like a Sistine Chapel sort of reference. But you have this area of the Hollow Earth where there's all these floating, glowy rocks. We don't get any explanation as to what this glowy shit is. What is it? What are its it's like, why is it floating? Why is it floating in some places and not in others? I don't know. I don't know. Weird. But they go to a temple or something, a building, and Kong puts his hand on an an indentation in the door or whatever that's painted red or something. It's just the right size and shape for his hand. And he goes in and he finds the axe and apparently a throne. So it would appear, that, well, not him, I guess, but his ancestors built this place. So whatever this is, it is a structure. I mean, it sort of looks like a cavern because it's got stalagmites and stalactites and shit. But there's also, you can see an archway back there. It's also very much, and a seat for him to sit on. It's obviously artificial in many ways. And when he places his axe on the ground in a little slot that it fits into, the whole floor lights up. The axe seems to charge up, and this is what alerts Godzilla. And also, you'll see that appears to be a pattern that looks like Godzilla on the floor that's glowing. What the fuck is that? It's like, how does that work? Why did it light up when he placed his axe in the little spot for it. How did Godzilla know that something was going on down there because of that? You know, is this an indication that Kong's ancestors revered Godzilla or Godzilla's ancestors? Feared them? You know, I mean, humans fear snakes and dragons and things historically, and yet we've made a lot of artwork utilizing them because at the same time that we may be afraid of them, they're cool looking. uh, you know, I don't know. What's the relationship? You know, and how was this built? I mean, Kong is very intelligent, but he doesn't really seem to have quite the same level of intelligence as humans. He seems to be a little bit less intelligent than people. You know, he's more intelligent than a great ape, but less intelligent than a human. Like he seems like, I don't know, maybe he's got dolphin level intelligence, or maybe he's kind of halfway between dolphins and people. Like he's almost as intelligent as humans, but not quite. You know, there's nothing here to indicate that his people created any sort of like actual technology, but nevertheless, they did engage apparently in engineering. Primitive engineering, perhaps, but engineering nonetheless. And then here you see, I believe that I mean, it's in the background, so it's hard to tell for sure, but it looked like it was many times larger than Kong himself, a statue of a giant gorilla, of one of his ancestors or something. So it would appear obvious that Kong's the last uh, survivor of a sapient species of Titan. You know, like his people actually apparently had a civilization at one point. They were, you know, Godzilla may have some level of intelligence, but he's ultimately just roaming around as a monster. Kong's people, they apparently built this place, or at least customized it, shall we say. So it feels like there are some definite answers there that need, you know, need to be given. You know, it's like why did we not learn anything about this? I mean, you know, it's like we see it, but nobody even talks about it in the film, much less explains it. So it feels like there are definitely mysteries set up for later, or maybe not. Maybe they're just not going to ever answer anything. They're just like, oh, speculate all you want, but you're never actually going to learn. It's like, well, that kind of sucks. And now we have the ending. Obviously, there's a big fight. Of the multiple engagements that they have, Kong only comes out on top once, I think, and all the other times Godzilla appears to kick Kong's ass. But at the end, Godzilla is getting his ass handed to him by Mechagodzilla, and Kong comes to the rescue and assists, and it briefly looks like they're gonna fight again after that, but then Kong drops his axe, and apparently that, I guess, was enough for Godzilla because he turned away. So we appear to end on a truce. I guess Godzilla's, prepared to allow Kong to live, even though he's not bowing down to him. And then after that, Kong apparently returns with, and Monarch goes to observe him or whatever in the Hollow Earth, and like instead of the king under the mountain, it's the king under the earth. So I guess Godzilla is the king on the surface, and Kong is the king under the surface. And I don't know. I mean, is this the end of the MonsterVerse? That's a good question. It feels like it is. It feels like they just decided, yeah, let's just go out on this one. You know, just wrap it up, and you know, there's a lot of potential. Of course, they've had a lot of potential all along, and I think they've wasted quite a bit of it. And I think they waste, like, all of the, quote unquote bad guys in this all die. Like, you wasted those characters. Well, we don't know about Sarazawa. He might be alive, but he might not. The extremely beautiful daughter of the evil CEO. Like, which I felt like she could easily, with a little bit of character development, I felt like she could easily become a very likable character. But they just didn't go that way. Uh, anyway, overall, it's a fun movie. Overall, my recommendation is you should go see it. Um, I guess I should have said that before the before the spoiler section. Go see it. Um, I'll I'll put it in the description. Anyway, but um, I don't know. Like I said, it is not without its issues. But then again, what movie is not? But of course, like I said, the really interesting thing is that all three of your major bad guy human characters, uh, none of them are white. You notice that? Like, that's kind of odd, especially this day and age. It's like, wow, you got a Hispanic guy. He's the chief, villain, and then his daughter, who obviously is also Hispanic, and his henchman, scientist, whatever you want to call him, who's Asian. Not a evil white male who white amongst them. That's really fucking weird. It's a nice change. So, and I don't know, like the lack of wokeness alone makes this a movie worth supporting. We shouldn't support movies that are overtly woke. You know, so yeah, go see it. Ah, this was vastly longer than I expected. I really honestly was not planning on this. I thought, yeah, I'll make like a 20-minute review or something. Like, it'll just, no, I can't do it. I don't know. I guess I can only do long form videos. There's too much to say, and I'm not sufficiently efficient. Yeah, sufficient. I'm not sufficiently efficient at saying them. All right. Until the next one.